G'day Bomber fans. Tough loss this weekend. I think the glaring issue here is the AFL. I think it's appalling that they allowed the game to go ahead despite our bus not turning up to the ground. No excuses. I think Vozo and his crew are already writing up a please explain letter. Before I get into what promises to be a very lethargic round review, get your votes in. 3-2-1 Brownlow style Bomber players only. And I know we didn't really have 3 players who deserved votes, but just give them to whoever. I don't really care. So usually I go through quarter by quarter explaining the events, but really it was the same story for each term. We were beyond putrid, we were embarrassing, and GWS were ruthless, give them credit. They started hot, kicked 7 goals to 1 in that first quarter, and it didn't slow down from there. We were held to 5 goals for the game, which means Jesse Hogan himself beat our total score with time left to play in the third. I don't really know where to start this video, if I'm being honest. I usually have a pretty simple format where I discuss the events and what we did well and what we didn't do well, and how the game was won or lost, but here I don't even know how to begin. What we saw unfold was genuinely upsetting. We let teams dictate our mood a bit as fans. It's a bit of a joke at times how sporting teams kind of dictate whether we have a good week or a bad week, but this is a different kind of upsetting. This transcends sporting upset. This genuinely set me up for a horrible weekend. I haven't really felt this way about a loss ever, if not ever then for a long time. I reckon this is the worst game I've ever viewed from an Essendon viewpoint, and there have been some shockers over the years, but I think it's the fact we were teased with a team that looked trustworthy early in the year, and now we are greeted to our 5th biggest loss ever. It's embarrassing. I will talk about what we did poorly, don't get me wrong, but first I just want to round off some records at you to have you feeling crappy all over again. That was GWS's biggest win ever. It was their biggest score ever. It was our lowest score since the 2021 elimination final. It was our 5th biggest loss in our history, our worst loss since 2006. It was Brad Scott's biggest loss of his coaching career. Keep in mind, this guy coached North Melbourne. That's to me the most embarrassing thing. Numbers and figures are hard to read, but knowing this guy suffered his biggest loss at Windy Hill instead of Arden Street, that is just hard to fathom, really. We went from being on the verge of a finals berth, some said we were top 4 smokies after that Crows win, in fact, to being absolutely belted and embarrassed and torn apart. So how did we lose this game of footy so badly? Well, we are clearly spent as a team. We have been for weeks now. It's a long season, longer than usual. We are a young list. You see young lists run out of legs. We have well and truly ran out of legs. You saw it straight away. GWS just looked fitter and more motivated from the bounce, really, the first bounce. They always had extra gears to go to. We never really got out of park. We look really tired and ready for this year to end. We are going through the motions, which is excusable against West Coast and North. We can beat the bad teams, but against a professional outfit like GWS, it's just not going to work out. I saw this being a possible reason for us to lose the game, but I never imagined it could get this bad. I predicted us to lose by 18 points. I was over 100 points off. Some of you guys were saying double that amount, and you were still wrong by a long, long way. So no one could have imagined a loss this bad. We are checked out and done. It's clear. If I could end the year now, I would. Not even a Friday night at the MCG could get me excited, because I can't see the boys getting up for it. They are in holiday mode. It's the fact we are so immature that really hurts me. Yes, we are young, but that doesn't excuse the lack of passion and dedication. We look to be playing to earn money. Some will be calling for Brad Scott's head, but that game was lost due to passion and fight and hunger. You cannot blame a coach for a 100-point loss. Yes, he is a factor, but I'm livid at the boys for that. No one seemed like caring enough all day. Even at the start of the game, they just wanted that game to end, really. Even key figures like Zach Merritt were not wanting to risk getting out of breath to avoid another goal against us. It got to that stage when you see players giving up on chasing because the margin is already so big. I hate that. I hate seeing players lose interest. It got to that stage in the second quarter, in fact. I was worried this would be over 150 points, if I'm being honest, when I saw us giving up so early. I was ready to turn off my TV. The only reason I didn't is because I had this video to record. We were obviously completely outclassed and outworked at the contest. It looked like they were playing an under-14 team. They were plus 29 for inside 50s, plus 116 for disposals, plus 13 for stoppage clearances, plus 42 for contested possessions, plus 12 for marks inside 50, plus 48 for marks in general. These are genuinely alarming numbers you would expect from a bottom team. We ended the round still a slight mathematical chance for finals. Obviously, we would have to beat the Pies by about 600 or 700 points, but we deserve to be right near the bottom of the ladder right now, dishing out performances like that. We were a chance to make the 8, but teams like North Melbourne and Hawthorn and Gold Coast and West Coast who beat the Dogs are showing more more heart late in the year than us, even though their seasons ended a long time ago. There is not a single player on the field that you can say won his direct matchup or tried his heart out all game. Even Hind and McGrath let their small forwards loose, despite winning lots of the ball themselves. I implore you to find anyone who had a game that would be void of criticism. It was an eerie feeling. Laverty, BZT, Merritt, Draper, Redmond, Wright, Stringer when he came on, Heppel, all these senior players all had stinkers, senior players lowering their colours. It's kind of heartbreaking to realise that your team doesn't have the steady and sound winning culture it looked like having earlier in the season. Imagine me saying a few months ago that Redmond and Merritt would give up in the second quarter. You would think I'm crazy, but it happened. We all saw it. All the senior players dropped their heads. That wouldn't happen at another club. It's the senior players that are supposed to lift you up, not the young kids, but it seemed like it was the other way around. The younger ones trying to get the game back on level terms, obviously failing to do so. There were obviously some mind games early. GWS were calling this a mini elimination final. They had a provocative banner poking at our recent lack of success. They were trying to play games with us and it clearly worked. It's just a bit disappointing that Brad Scott, yes, I'm going to criticize him now, don't worry, is hesitant to try that because of his long-term view. You can sacrifice the long-term for the short-term. I agree with his feelings there. He said it a lot. But you can clearly sacrifice the long-term when you refuse to show up and make a statement in the short-term as well. He should be ashamed of the way he handled the pressure. He refuses to acknowledge our finals fight. He talks about every game being important. That is exactly how you can find yourselves flat before a game. Not every game is as important as that one. I would hope we enter the match differently for different opponents. I don't want him crapping on about every game being important because no sane human will be able to play at the same intensity for 27 to 28 weeks to win a grand final. This had to be hyped up more. He had to create tension like GWS did. They did the right thing, but he refused. The boys will be using this for fuel for the future, and I hope he will too, because his reluctance to change his tune and attitude between games has genuinely hurt our form. Not every game is the same. Some games require a spark or a rev up, and we clearly didn't get one here. I could go on and talk about meaningless numbers that all point to the same thing. We were not interested, not fit, not on the same wavelength. This is the type of effort you would expect in a preseason game. There are genuinely no excuses for this. There never are for 100-point drubbings. This has set us back as a club. I went from having a positive outlook on the season to questioning certain aspects of the club. I don't think Scott should be sacked. I don't think we should jump to conclusions, but I do think we are in a worse spot than we initially thought after that first half of the season, which was really promising. And it's just embarrassing, and frankly, I'm glad we aren't playing in September. I would rather us be embarrassed here than later in the year when us fans have hope of a streak-ending finals victory. GWS honestly did us a favour by destroying our season. We clearly are not fit enough. We are not dedicated enough to the cause. We would be a genuine embarrassment come finals time. We aren't worthy of it. It's not doom and gloom for the whole season. We have improved as a club for sure, but this shows we have a mountain of work to do before we start to even think about September footy. That is just an embarrassing weekend to be an Essendon supporter. I hope we see some changes made next week. I would like a big axe swing. Stewart and Setterfield deserve spots in the AFL team the way they played in the reserves, and I hope we see some players just dropped because we need to make a statement somehow. Make players feel uneasy about their spot. Kelly has been a moving magnet in recent weeks. Sartas shouldn't just stay because he is young. We need to put a winning culture in these boys by rewarding good form and punishing bad form. It's what GWS would do. We made players like Jesse Hogan look like Cristiano Ronaldo. Tom Green is a bully. Cornelio, Ward, Himmelberg. These players clearly have that mindset that we don't have. They are finals footballers. We need to start being brutal with our squad calls to at least hope it helps to improve our mindset for the future. Let's just get into some votes. I don't really know if anyone deserves any. I'm going to give one to Andrew Phillips. Maybe it's because I feel bad about him retiring. Maybe it's because he looked extra beautiful under those giant stadium lights. Ben Hobbs, 2 votes. I thought he actually gave a solid crack, to be honest. He's one of 2 players that I would say did that. He had some good tackling pressure, or not good, he had passable tackling pressure, and 3 votes to Nick Hind. He actually had a somewhat decent game. I think he will get most of the votes. He really did try to spark something, but no one really deserves any votes. I was tempted to give 1 vote to Guelphy because he had a similar impact to others despite playing, being on the bench for the whole game with an injury. In the end, that was just a deplorable effort. The video is done. I could have been harsher, but really I think it's only fair I match the lethargic energy the boys showed on Saturday. If you guys want a harsher video, go check out Absolutely Essendon. They're probably going to be pretty fed up, the boys over there. But that's it. Season over. Year done. Big mess of a performance. Impossible to put to words how disappointed I am. I would say I want us to show more in the last game against Collingwood, but really I don't care anymore. This is the end of the season for me. I will see you guys for the round preview regardless. Cheers for watching, Dons fans.